I still remember the call that changed everything. It was Tuesday night, and I'd just gotten home from my shift at the hospital. My feet ached, and all I wanted was to collapse on the couch with a glass of wine. But when I heard Robert's voice crack on the phone, I knew something was terribly wrong. "It's Dad," he said. "He's had another heart attack. Mom's losing it, and the medical bills are... Sarah, we might lose the house." My heart sank. My in-laws, Frank and Diane, had always been proud people. They'd built their lives in their small Connecticut home, raised 3 kids there, and never asked anyone for help. Now, at 72 and 69, they were facing the unthinkable. Without thinking twice, I pulled up our savings account. $27,000. Every penny we'd saved for the down payment on our dream home in Boston. Rob and I had spent 3 years scrimping, eating ramen, skipping vacations. But family comes first, right? "We'll figure it out," I told him. "They're not losing that house." The next morning, I was at the bank. The teller, Janet, knew me by name after all my weekly deposits. She raised an eyebrow when I asked to withdraw everything. "Big purchase?" she asked with a smile. "Something like that," I replied, my hands shaking as I signed the forms. Rob met me at his parents' house in Fairfield. Frank was still in the hospital. But Diane was there, surrounded by bills and foreclosure notices. Her usually perfect silver hair was disheveled, and her eyes were red from crying. "Sarah, honey, you shouldn't be here. This isn't your problem," she said. But I could see the relief in her eyes when I pulled out the cashier's check. "Your family," I said simply. "This is what family does." Over the next few weeks, I threw myself into sorting out their finances. I negotiated with the mortgage company, set up payment plans for the medical bills, and even convinced the hospital to reduce some charges. Every day after work, I'd drive the hour to Fairfield to help Diane with paperwork, or just sit with Frank when he finally came home. I started picking up extra shifts at the hospital. Night shifts, holiday shifts, anything that paid overtime. Rob was supportive, but I could see the strain in his eyes when we'd look at real estate listings online, knowing we were back to square one. "Maybe we should tell my parents we can't come to Sunday dinners anymore," he suggested one night. "Save on gas money." I shook my head. "No, they need us now more than ever. Your dad's still recovering, and your mom needs the emotional support." I organized their medications, drove them to appointments, and even helped Diane plant her spring garden when Frank couldn't manage it. My sister-in-law, Claire, would drop by occasionally, always full of advice but never offering help. My brother-in-law, Tom, lived in California and sent a card. By June, the house was safe. Frank was getting stronger, and Diane had started smiling, again. They'd even begun planning a big 4th of July barbecue, their traditional celebration. "You saved us, Sarah," Diane said one afternoon, gripping my hand. "I don't know how we'll ever repay you." "You don't need to," I assured her. "We're family, I believe that. Every sacrifice, every extra shift, every postponed dream, it was all worth it to see them back on their feet." Rob and I would start over with our savings. We were young. We had time. The invitation to the 4th of July party came in the mail, handwritten by Diane. She'd even added a little note. Wouldn't be a celebration without our angel. I bought a new sundress for the occasion, made my grandmother's famous potato salad, and picked up sparklers for the kids. As we drove to Fairfield that morning, I felt a warmth in my chest. This was what it was all about. Family supporting family, being there when it mattered most. I had no idea I was about to learn just how little my sacrifice had meant to them. The moment we pulled into the driveway, I knew something was off. Cars lined the street, way more than usual for a family barbecue. Through the window, I could see Diane bustling around in her best dress, the one she saved for church and special occasions. Rob grabbed the potato salad while I collected the sparklers and gift bag. The front door was open, and the sound of laughter spilled out onto the porch. As we stepped inside, conversation seemed to pause for a beat before resuming at a lower volume. "Oh, you made it," Diane said, barely glancing our way. No hug, no warm greeting. Just those 3 words before she turned back to a woman I didn't recognize. As I was saying, Margaret, the renovation wasn't cheap, but Frank insisted on the best. Renovation? I looked around, noticing new crown molding and fresh paint. When had this happened? Rob squeezed my hand and guided me toward the kitchen. The usually cozy space was packed with strangers. Neighbors I'd never met. People from Frank's old job, Diane's book club. Claire was holding court near the island, gesturing dramatically as she told some story. "There she is," Claire announced, when she spotted me. "The famous nurse. Everyone, this is Rob's wife. She works at Hartford Hospital. Very dedicated to her job. Not Sarah. Not the woman who saved our parents' house. Just Rob's wife." I forced a smile and moved to put the potato salad on the counter. But Diane intercepted me. "Oh, we've got plenty of food already." Susan brought her amazing quinoa salad, and Margaret made her award-winning coleslaw. "Maybe just leave yours in the car." My cheeks burned. That potato salad was my grandmother's recipe, the one Diane had specifically requested every summer for the past 5 years. Rob started to protest, but I touched his arm. "It's fine. I'll put it in the fridge for later." The rest of the afternoon was a masterclass in exclusion. Every time I tried to join a conversation, it mysteriously shifted or disbanded. When Frank finally made his entrance, looking remarkably well for someone who'd nearly died 3 months ago, he walked right past me to greet some golf buddy. I found myself relegated to refilling ice buckets and collecting empty plates while the real guests enjoyed themselves. At one point, I overheard Diane telling her book club friend about their recent financial troubles. "Thank goodness Tom was able to help out," she said. "You know how it is with family on the West Coast. They always come through, and Claire's husband has been so generous with his investment advice." Tom? The son who'd sent a card? I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. The final blow came during Frank's toast. He stood on the deck, raising his beer to the crowd. "I want to thank everyone for being here today. This house means everything to Diane and me, and we're grateful to still be here, to family, to good neighbors, and to the people who really matter." His eyes swept the crowd, landing on Claire, her husband, various neighbors, everyone but me. When he finished, the applause was thunderous. I stood frozen by the sliding door, invisible. "Sarah, could you grab more napkins from the garage?" Diane called out, not even looking at me. "The good ones are in the cabinet above the workbench." I walked to the garage in a daze. The good napkins were right where she said, along with boxes of other party supplies I'd helped them buy over the years. As I reached for them, I heard voices through the thin wall. "Is she always this clingy?" An unfamiliar woman's voice. "Oh, that's just how she is," Claire replied, always trying to insert herself. Rob could have done so much better. Did you know she made him move away from his family? And now she shows up here acting like she owns the place. Diane mentioned she's been hovering since Frank's heart attack. Some people just don't know boundaries. I stood there, napkins in hand, feeling like I'd been punched in the gut. Clingy? Hovering? I'd saved their house. I'd sacrificed everything. When I finally returned to the party, Rob was looking for me. "Where were you? I've been..." He stopped, seeing my face. "What's wrong?" "I need some air," I whispered. We walked to the front yard, away from the noise. I told him what I'd heard, watched his face cycle through disbelief, anger, and finally, resignation. "They don't mean it," he said weakly. "You know how Claire gets when she's had wine." "It's not just Claire, Rob. Your parents haven't acknowledged me once. They told people Tom helped with the house, Tom, who lives 3,000 miles away. He rubbed his face. Maybe we should go. As we walked back to say goodbye, Frank stepped onto the porch. Leaving already? Well, don't let us keep you. Though, Sarah, next time maybe call ahead. We weren't really expecting extra guests today. Extra guests. At the party I'd helped make possible, in the house I'd saved. I opened my mouth to respond, but Rob was already pulling me toward the car. Happy 4th of July, Dad, he said tightly. We drove home in silence, the potato salad sloshing in its container with every turn. The fireworks started as we reached Hartford, brilliant bursts of light that felt like mockery. Everything I'd believed about family, about sacrifice meaning something, had just exploded as spectacularly as those colorful displays in the sky. The days after the party crawled by in a haze. Rob threw himself into work, leaving early and coming home late. When we did talk, we danced around the elephant in the room. His family, my humiliation, our empty savings account. Maybe you misunderstood, he said on Wednesday night, pushing pasta around his plate. Dad's been on a lot of medication. He probably didn't mean it that way. I stared at him. Which part did I misunderstand? When he called me an extra guest? Or when your mother told everyone Tom saved the house? He sighed. That deep, tired sound I'd been hearing a lot lately. Can we just let it go? They're old, Sarah. They're set in their ways. I wanted to scream. Instead, I got up and started washing dishes. The clink of plates filled the silence between us. My phone buzzed constantly with texts from Claire, all variations of, "Thanks for helping with cleanup," and "Great to see you." As if nothing had happened. As if I hadn't heard her trash-talking me to strangers. I left them all unread. Thursday brought a call from Diane. I let it go to voicemail. "Sarah, dear, I noticed you left your potato salad here. I'll have Rob pick it up this weekend. Oh, and I think you might have accidentally taken home our good napkins. Could you bring those back? They're part of a set." I listened to it 3 times, each replay making me angrier. Not one word of thanks, not a hint of acknowledgement, just complaints about napkins. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled out my laptop and opened our bank statements. $27,000, transferred March 15th. I found the receipt from the mortgage company, the payment plan I'd negotiated, the medical bills I'd sorted through. Everything in my name because their credit was shot. That's when it hit me. The mortgage modification, I'd co-signed it. My name was on the paperwork. In their rush to save the house, they'd needed someone with good credit. Someone trusting. Someone stupid enough to tie herself legally to their debt. I spent Friday at work in a fog, nearly giving the wrong medication twice. My supervisor, Janet, pulled me aside. "You okay, Sarah? You've been off all week." I almost laughed. Off. That was one way to put it. "Family stuff," I said. She nodded knowingly. "Those are the worst. Take the weekend if you need it." But I didn't need time off. I needed answers. That evening, I drove to my sister's apartment in New Haven. Emma opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug. "Wine or whiskey?" she asked. "Both," I replied. Over drinks, I told her everything. The money, the party, the voicemail about napkins. She listened without interrupting, her lawyer brain clearly working. "Pull up the paperwork," she said finally. We spent 2 hours going through documents. Mortgage modifications, payment agreements, medical payment plans. My name was on more than I'd realized. "Sarah," Emma said slowly, "you're not just a co-signer. In some of these, you're listed as partial owner." "What?" She pointed to a clause I'd skimmed over in March, when all I'd cared about was saving their house. "Right here. To secure the modification, they added you to the deed, probably because their credit was too bad otherwise." I stared at the screen. There it was, in black and white. Sarah Mitchell, co-owner. They probably don't even know, Emma continued. People never read these things carefully. But legally, you own part of that house. I drove home in a daze. Rob was already in bed, pretending to sleep. I sat in our living room, surrounded by the remnants of our postponed dreams. The real estate magazines we'd collected, the Pinterest boards for our future home, the calendar where we'd marked potential moving dates, all gathering dust. My phone rang. Diane again. This time I answered. Sarah, finally. Listen, we're having the Andersons over for dinner tomorrow and I need my good china. You borrowed it last Christmas, remember? Could you drop it off in the morning? I never borrowed your china, Diane. Oh, I'm sure you did. Check your cupboards and bring those napkins while you're at it. Is there anything else you need? My voice was ice. She paused, probably surprised by my tone. Well, since you're offering, Frank needs a ride to his cardiology appointment on Tuesday, and the garden needs weeding if you have time. I hung up. The next morning, I called Emma. I need a lawyer, a real estate one. I know just the person, she said. While Rob slept in, I met with attorney Marcus Chen in his downtown office. He reviewed the documents, asked careful questions, and finally leaned back in his chair. You have options, he said. They've been making payments, but technically you could call in your portion, force a sale or buyout. I don't want to force anything, I said. I just want what's fair. He smiled grimly. In my experience, fair is what you make it. I left his office with a folder of information and a business card. As I sat in my car, my phone buzzed with another text from Diane. Did you find the china? I turned off my phone and drove to the bank. Janet was there, smiling as always. Back again? Making a deposit this time, I hope? Actually, I said, I need to ask about property liens. Her smile faltered. Is everything okay? It will be, I replied. And for the first time that week, I meant it. Monday morning came too quickly. I'd spent the weekend reviewing documents with Marcus Chen, my head spinning with legal terms and possibilities. Rob had noticed my absence but hadn't pushed. He was dealing with his own guilt, I think, caught between his family and his wife. I need to talk to you, I said over coffee. About my parents? He looked tired. About our future. I spread the documents on the table. His eyes widened as he read. You own part of their house? We own part of their house, I corrected. Community property state, remember? He sank into his chair. What are you going to do? What do you think I should do? For once, he met my eyes directly. I think you should do what's right. For you. Marcus had prepared everything by Tuesday. The letter was professional, clear, and devastating. Frank and Diane had 30 days to either buy out my share of the property at current market value, or agree to a formal rental arrangement. The third option, forced sale, was left unspoken, but clearly implied. You sure about this? Marcus asked as I signed the papers. They humiliated me in the house I saved for them, I said. Yes, I'm sure. The process server delivered the notice Wednesday afternoon. I knew because my phone started ringing at 3:47 p.m. First Diane, then Frank, then Claire. I let them all go to voicemail and drove to my sister's place instead. Emma had wine ready. So you did it. I did it. How do you feel? I thought about it. Free, scared, angry, all of it. That's normal. Trust me, I see this all the time in family law. Money makes people show their true colors. The voicemails were predictable. Diane shrieking about betrayal. Frank growling about ungrateful children. Claire calling me a gold digger. Rich, considering I was the one who'd paid. But it was Rob's text that surprised me. They called. I told them to talk to your lawyer, coming home early. Want Thai food? By Friday, the tone had shifted. Diane's messages went from angry to pleading. Sarah, sweetheart, there's been a misunderstanding. We need to talk about this like family. Family. The word tasted bitter now. Frank tried a different approach, calling Rob at work. Your wife's lost her mind, he said. Talk some sense into her. But Rob didn't. Instead, he came home with flowers and a question. Want to look at apartments in Boston this weekend? I kissed him. Let's do it. Saturday morning brought Claire to our doorstep. She'd driven up from Stamford, designer, bag in hand, perfectly styled as always. We need to talk, she announced. No, we don't, I replied, not opening the door fully. You're destroying our family. Your family destroyed itself when it decided I wasn't part of it. She tried tears next. Think about what this is doing to Mom and Dad. Dad's heart. His heart was fine enough to host a party where he called me an unwelcome guest. He didn't mean it that way. Then how did he mean it, Claire? Explain it to me. She couldn't, because we both knew exactly how he'd meant it. Marcus called that afternoon. They've hired a lawyer, Joseph Brennan out of Bridgeport. He's requesting a meeting. Set it up, I said, but I'm not backing down. The meeting was scheduled for the following Thursday. In the meantime, I went back to work, picked up extra shifts, and started rebuilding our savings. Every dollar felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Tuesday night, Tom called from California. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Sarah, it's Tom. Listen, I just heard about all this. Let me guess. I'm the villain in this story? He paused. Actually, no. Claire told me what happened at the party. That was wrong. What they did was wrong. I nearly dropped the phone. You think so? I know so. I also know you saved their house when I couldn't. Or wouldn't, I guess. I'm sorry, Sarah. For not helping then, and for them not acknowledging. You now? It was the first honest conversation I'd had with any of them in months. Wednesday arrived with another surprise. Diane showed up at the hospital during my lunch break. Security stopped her at the desk, but I could see her through the glass doors, looking older and smaller than I remembered. I met her in the lobby. You shouldn't be here. Sarah, please, just 5 minutes. Against my better judgment, I led her to the cafeteria. She sat across from me, hands shaking as she opened her purse. I brought this, she said, pulling out a check. It's not much, but it's a start. 10,000. We can pay the rest in installments. I looked at the check, then at her. It's not about the money, Diane. Then what? What do you want? I wanted to be family. I wanted my sacrifice to mean something. I wanted basic respect. Her face crumpled. We do respect you. No, I cut her off. You don't. You erased me, you told people Tom helped when he did nothing. You called me an extra guest in the house I saved. You made me invisible at my own family gathering. She stared at her hands. I didn't realize. Yes, you did. You knew exactly what you were doing. I stood to leave, but her next words stopped. Me. The house is all we have, she whispered. Frank's medical bills, the credit cards. If we lose the house, we lose everything. I turned back. You should have thought of that before you lost me. Thursday's meeting was tense. Joseph Brennan was old school, all bluster and intimidation. But Marcus was prepared. He laid out the facts coldly, clinically. The money I'd provided, the documents I'd signed, the legal ownership I held. Brennan's face got redder with each page. This is extortion, he spat. This is contract law, Marcus replied smoothly. Frank and Diane sat silently, looking smaller than I'd ever seen them. When Brennan started talking about challenging the documents, Frank finally spoke. Stop. His voice was quiet. Just stop. She's right. We did this. The room fell silent. Diane reached for his hand, but he pulled away. We'll take the rental agreement, he said. Fair market value, monthly payments. And just like that, it was over. Papers were drawn up, signatures collected. They'd pay me rent to live in their own home, the home I'd saved, the home where they'd humiliated me. As we left the conference room, Frank stopped me. Are you happy now? I considered the question. No, but I'm not invisible anymore. That night, Rob and I ordered pizza and looked at Boston apartments online. The future we'd postponed was finally within reach again. My phone sat silent on the counter. No more pleading calls, no more angry messages. Just quiet. You did the right thing, Rob said, squeezing my hand. Did I? They're your parents. They're my parents who hurt my wife, who erased her sacrifice, who treated her like she was nothing. He paused. I should have stood up for you sooner. I'm sorry. It was the apology I'd needed, even if it came from the wrong person. But it was enough. For now, it was enough. The first rent check arrived exactly on time. Diane's perfect handwriting on the envelope, the memo line reading simply, June rent. No note. No acknowledgement of how surreal this arrangement was. Just business. I deposited it feeling oddly empty. This wasn't what I'd wanted. Not really. But what I'd wanted, what I'd thought I had, never existed in the first place. Claire lasted 2 weeks before the real fireworks began. She started a family group chat, one I noticed I wasn't included in until Rob showed me his phone. Can you believe she's making Mom and Dad pay rent? Claire had written. In their own home? Tom had responded. The home she saved? That one? Whose side are you on? The side that acknowledges reality, Claire. The chat devolved from there. Rob eventually left the group, but screenshots kept coming from Tom, who seemed to find the whole thing darkly amusing from his safe distance in California. The neighborhood gossip started next. Diane had always been proud of her social standing. In Fairfield, her book club connections, her church committees. But secrets have a way of spreading in small communities. Is it true the Mitchells are renting from their daughter-in-law? I overheard at the grocery store. I heard she tricked them into signing over the house. No, they needed her credit. Something about bankruptcy? Each version was worse than the last, and I knew Frank and Diane were hearing them all. Their carefully maintained image was cracking like old paint. The 4th of July came around again. This year's party invitation never arrived, but Claire made sure to post photos on Facebook, a much smaller gathering, empty spaces where crowds had been. Frank looking tired, Diane's smile forced. The comments were telling. Smaller party this year? Where is everyone? Miss seeing the whole gang. Rob and I spent the holiday in Boston, touring apartments and eating at food trucks. It was perfect. By August, the cracks were becoming chasms. Janet from the bank mentioned seeing Diane at the food pantry. She pretended not to see me, Janet said, but I'd recognize that silver hair anywhere. The second rent check was a week late. Marcus prepared the formal notice, but it arrived the next day with a short note. Sorry for delay, F. 2 words more than last time. Progress? September brought unexpected drama. Rob got a call from Claire's husband, Michael. They were separating. She won't stop talking about the house situation, he told Rob over beers. It's consuming her. She's convinced you and Sarah destroyed the family. I can't do it anymore. Even from my perceived victory, I felt bad for Claire. Almost. The Churchcraft Fair was Diane's undoing. She'd run the event for 15 years, but this year, she was quietly asked to step aside. "We think fresh leadership would be good," the pastor's wife told her, according to the network of hospital volunteers who kept me informed. Diane's response was apparently spectacular. Tears, shouting, accusations of betrayal. The same words she'd used on me, now directed at her social circle. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. October's check came with a longer note. "Sarah, could we talk? Please call. Diane." I stared at it for a long time before filing it away. Not yet. Maybe not ever. Frank's health declined again. Not dramatically, but enough that Tom flew out, from California. He called me from their house. "It's bad here, Sarah. The house is falling apart. They're falling apart." That's not my problem anymore. I know. I'm not saying it is. Just, this isn't what you wanted either, is it? He was right. Watching them crumble brought no satisfaction. If anything, it highlighted how hollow our relationship had always been. I'd thought I was saving family. I'd really been subsidizing strangers who happened to share Rob's DNA. The holiday season approached with its usual awkwardness magnified. Thanksgiving plans became a complex negotiation. Rob wanted to see his parents. I refused to enter that house as anything other than the landlord. We compromised. Dinner at a restaurant. Neutral territory. It was exactly as uncomfortable as expected. Frank barely spoke. Diane kept starting sentences and stopping. Claire glared from across the table. Only Tom seemed relaxed, probably because he was flying back to California the next day. "This is ridiculous," Claire finally exploded over dessert. "We're family. We should be at home." "Who's home?" I asked quietly. The table fell silent. "Mom and Dad's home," she said through gritted teeth. "The one I pay for?" I kept my voice level. "The one where I was treated like an unwelcome stranger?" "That home?" Frank slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. You made your point, Sarah. You won. You got the house, the money, the power. What more do you want?" Everyone in the restaurant turned to stare. Diane's face flushed red. The Mitchell family facade, maintained so carefully for so long, shattered completely in that moment. "I wanted to be included," I said simply. "I wanted my sacrifice acknowledged. I wanted to be family." I stood, placed my napkin on the table. But I learned too late that wasn't possible. Happy Thanksgiving. Rob followed me out, leaving his family with the check. We sat in the car for a long time before he spoke. "That was necessary," I finished. I was going to say overdue. December's rent check arrived wrapped in a Christmas card. Inside, Diane's shaky handwriting. "We were wrong. Can we start over?" I looked at the card for a long time. Start over. As if you could just rewind time. Pretend the humiliation never happened. The betrayal never occurred. As if trust, once shattered, could be glued back together like a broken vase. But people aren't vases. And some things, once broken, should stay that way. I filed the check and threw away the card. Outside, snow began to fall, covering the world in temporary whiteness. By morning, it would all look clean and new. But underneath, the ground would remain exactly as it had been. Hard, cold, and forever changed. Spring came early that year. By March, the snow had melted, and crocuses pushed through the ground with stubborn determination. Rob and I had settled into our new apartment in Boston's South End, a renovated brownstone with exposed brick and actual closet space. It felt like home, in a way our old place never had. The rent checks kept coming, always on time now. The notes had stopped after Christmas. I think Diane finally understood that some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt with greeting card sentiments. It was a Tuesday when the call came. Not from Frank or Diane, but from Hartford Hospital. "Mrs. Mitchell? This is Dr. Palmer. Your father-in-law was brought in this morning. Another cardiac event. He's stable, but he's asking for you. I almost corrected her. Technically, I wasn't next of kin anymore, not in any way that mattered. But something made me pause. Is the family there? His wife is here. She's upset. She gave us your number. I found Diane in the cardiac unit waiting room, looking every one of her 70 years. When she saw me, something broke in her face. Sarah, you came. How is he? They don't know yet. They're running tests. She twisted her hands in her lap. Claire's in Texas for work. Tom can't get a flight until tomorrow. Rob's not answering his phone. He's in depositions today. I'll text him. We sat in awkward silence. The old Diane would have filled it with chatter, complaints, demands. This Diane just stared at her hands. I'm sorry, she said finally. For? Everything. The party, the lies, making you invisible. I let the words hang between us. Why now? She laughed bitterly. Because I'm scared? Because I'm alone? Because I finally understand what it feels like to be erased? All terrible reasons for an apology. I know. She met my eyes for the first time in months. How about this? I'm sorry because you deserved better. Because you gave everything and we gave nothing. Because we were too proud and stupid to see what was right in front of us. The doctor appeared before I could respond. Frank was stable, but would need surgery. High risk at his age, but necessary. Someone needed to sign consents. I'll do it, Diane said, then looked at me. Unless, do you need to approve, since the house? That's not how it works, I said. Sign the papers, Diane. Rob arrived an hour later, still in his suit, face tight with worry. We hugged, and I filled him in quickly. You didn't have to come, he said. Yeah, I did. The surgery took 6 hours. Claire made it from Texas. Tom's red eye landed at dawn. We all sat in that waiting room. Not quite a family, but something else. Connected by crisis, if nothing else. Frank pulled through. When he woke up, groggy and disoriented, I was there with Diane. His eyes focused on me with surprising clarity. Sarah. His voice was raspy. You came. Don't talk. Rest. No. He gripped my hand weakly. Need to say. I was wrong. We were wrong. You're good family. Better than we deserved. I squeezed his hand back. Rest now. The recovery was slow. I found myself visiting more often, bringing healthy meals Diane couldn't quite manage anymore. Rob came too, cautiously rebuilding bridges I'd thought were permanently burned. One afternoon in May, I was weeding Diane's garden. She couldn't manage it with her arthritis. She brought out lemonade, the real kind with too much sugar, and sat beside me on the bench Frank had built years ago. I've been thinking about the house, she said. The house is fine. You're paying rent. It's handled. No, I mean, we want to make it right. Frank and I talked. We want to buy out your portion. Fair market value. Make it clean. I set down the trowel. You don't have that kind of money. Tom's helping. And Claire, when her divorce is final. Even Michael's offering something. Says it's the least he can do after everything. I don't want your money, Diane. Then what do you want? I thought about it. What did I want? For the past year, I'd wanted recognition, respect, justice. I'd gotten all of that, in a way, but it hadn't filled the hole their betrayal had created. I want to let it go, I said finally. All of it. The anger, the hurt, the house. I want to move on. She nodded slowly. Then let us buy you out. Let us own our mistakes and our home. Free and clear. It took another month to sort out the paperwork. Marcus handled everything professionally, making sure I was protected. The final amount was more than fair, enough to finally buy that Boston condo Rob and I had been dreaming about. The closing was on a Thursday. Just signatures and handshakes, no speeches or sentiment. As I signed the last document, transferring full ownership back to Frank and Diane, I felt something lift from my shoulders. "Thank you," Frank said quietly. "For everything. Then and now." I nodded. "Take care of the house. It's a good house." "Take care of yourself," Diane added. "You're a good person, better than we knew." Rob and I drove back to Boston in comfortable silence. Our offer on the condo had been accepted that morning. New beginnings all around. "Any regrets?" he asked as we crossed into Massachusetts. "No. You?" "My only regret is that it took so long to see what they were doing to you. To us." That weekend, we hosted a housewarming party in our new place. My sister Emma came, along with friends from the hospital, Rob's colleagues, our actual chosen family. People who saw us, valued us, included us without reservation. Diane sent a card. Inside, a photo of their 4th of July party. A small gathering this time, intimate. On the back, she'd written, "The house feels different now, lighter. Thank you for saving it, and for teaching us what family really means." I kept the photo but donated the frame to charity. Some memories deserve preservation, others just need better presentation. Months later, Tom called with news. Frank and Diane were downsizing, selling the Fairfield house, and moving to a senior community closer to Hartford Hospital. "They're donating part of the proceeds," he said, "to a fund for families facing medical debt. They're calling it the Second Chances Fund." "That's good," I said, and meant it. "They wanted to name it after you." I told them that would be missing the point entirely. I laughed. "You're finally getting it." "Yeah, well, better late than never. The last time I saw the Fairfield house was by accident. Rob and I were driving to a weekend getaway, and traffic forced us through the old neighborhood. A young family was moving in, kids playing in the yard, boxes everywhere, that chaos of new beginnings. "Our old life," Rob murmured. "Someone else's new life," I corrected. We drove on, leaving the past where it belonged. The sun set behind us, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and purples. Ahead, the road stretched clear and promising. I'd learned something valuable through it all. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting. It's about choosing to remember differently. The sacrifice remained real. The betrayal remained painful. But neither defined me anymore. The house had been saved. The family had been exposed. And I had been found, not by them, but by myself. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. Sometimes it's just living well, surrounded by people who see you for exactly who you are. And that was worth every penny of the $27,000. Even if I'd never see a dime of it again,